Vishana.
Yes.
I will call you both in LinkedIn, okay? For we to have contact. I'll send you a LinkedIn invitation, okay?
Okay.
I enjoyed a lot, and I have a very good friend, Katerina Weinberg, from the entrepreneurs, from the Weinberg Bank. I don't know the name of the bank in Moscow. She's the head of innovation. She spoke in this conference yesterday. And she invited me to go to Russia past year for a very interesting event. I was not past year, 2019, but I intend to go briefly for that region. So I want to make contact with you, okay? I will be in touch.
Okay, okay. So
I'll send you a message for you to start a conversation.
Okay, I will be
put
waiting.
Together our chapters, Brazilian chapters, and those chapters, okay?
And okay. So will be very nice to join our effort in order to have, great result and great effect.
Okay, I hope you are enjoying the conference.
Thank you very much. We enjoyed very much. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Okay, so hello everyone. We are currently broadcasting to YouTube, and in 2 minutes we can start our panel. So I'm going to call you in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Isa. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, I could say the same.
Very good. I'm absolutely surprised because I'm not sure. I probably don't follow football or other sports, but the Euro Cup is already going on in Europe, and the stadiums are full of people. I was seeing the match United Kingdom versus Croatia, and there was 18,000 people in the stadium. Oh my God. In Brazil, it's absolutely prohibited. The matches without any audience, no supporters, no one. So I think the things are under control in the European Union.
I think they're releasing the relaxing restrictions now, slowly, yes.
Yeah, it was a surprise for me. It was kind of a normal life. Interesting.
Yeah, I think in the US it is more normal than here, but still it is getting close to normal.
Very good.
Okay, so now it's 3:10. Welcome again. We thank you all for your presence, and we invite you to our last dialogue session of the day. At this moment, we kindly ask that only the keynote speakers leave the camera on. The dialogue session's title is Strategy, Technology, and Digital Transformation in a Post-COVID-19 World. And we welcome Professor Dr. Sumitra Dutta, Gianna Sagazio, and Professor Dr. Moacir de Miranda Oliveira Jr. Welcome all. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Isa. First of all, thank you very much for the audience. Thank you very much, Gianna Sagazio. I know Gianna is quite a really busy people, and you are in the middle of the afternoon, in a Thursday afternoon in Brazil, and so thank you very much for finding a room for us. And thank you very much to Sumitra Dutta. There is quite busy. I think you are already 5 hours ahead of us, Sumitra. So it's not so early for you. And I'm seeing here Professor Guilherme Adiplonsky. I want to thank you, Professor Adiplonsky, for all the support for this conference. Adi was the person that created the first contact among guys at the University of São Paulo and the Triple Helix Association. So this conference is also because of his support and the initiative. Okay, I want to thank you, the audience, but mainly thank you very much for our panelists. Gianna Sagazio is Innovation Director at the CNI, the National Confederation of Industry in Brazil, the representative of the Brazilian industry. Thank you very much, Diana. I want to thank you very much, Professor Sumitra Dutta from Cornell University, the coordinator of the Global Innovation Index, for his presence in this very important panel. My suggestion for this panel is that we do the way I'm going to read for you. I'm doing already a brief introduction, 5 minutes, and then I give you both of you the room for you to say the first impression on the subject, connections among strategy, industry 4.0 and digital transformation. And then I'll make 1 or 2 questions, and then we'll open to audience questions from the audience. So Sumitra, the floor is yours. It's muted, it's muted.
Okay, good. So thank you, Moacir, for inviting me to the Triple Helix conference. I think you organized some excellent events, and I'm very pleased to be joining this event together with you and good friend Gianna. Gianna, good to join you on this panel also. The topic really is around innovation, digital transformation, post-COVID world, sustainable development goals. And I just want to share a few thoughts on these topics because they all are linked together in some interesting manner. So first of all, we are still going through the COVID world in some sense. Many people feel that a lot of the COVID phenomena will probably continue with us in the future too. And I think even though in different parts of the world, we're coming out of the COVID pandemic at different speeds, I do believe that we are starting to see some kind of a contours of the future. So we are trying to see and emerge out of the COVID world into a new future that will be driven by digital technologies. Now, if you look at the impact of digital technologies in general, you typically identify 3 levels of impact. The first level of impact is when you have substitution of the old technology by the new. So let's say you invent the mobile telephone, you substitute the fixed telephone calling with the mobile telephone calling. The second level of impact is diffusion. More and more people start using the new technology simply because it's cheaper, better, more effective in some manner. And that's what we have seen also as mobile technologies improve. People have in fact switched to mobile technology extensively to the degree that now even fixed line has become less important or sometimes seen as unnecessary. The third order of impact is the most important. The first 2 was substitution, second was diffusion. The third is transformation. When actually the ways in which people live and work start changing because technology is so widely diffused in society. Today, the way we, for example, conduct business or the way we conduct interaction socially is all changed because of social media, because of mobile phones, because of how the penetration of mobile telephony is so high in society. So now if you look at this 3-stage sort of map of how technology impacts us, what I would argue is that in the COVID era, the last 12, 14 months, the world has seen a very rapid, accelerated substitution and diffusion phase. So we were doing things in a certain manner, let's say education, we're doing things in person. We substituted it by technology, remote learning, and we were forced because of the pandemic situation to diffuse it very widely. Everyone had to essentially move to remote learning. And a similar thing happened in many companies where people had to move to remote working. So what we saw was very rapid acceleration in the substitution and the diffusion phases of technology impact. What we have not seen, and this is the interesting point, we have not seen the real transformation as yet. So I would argue that the real transformation of the digital impacts of the whole COVID phenomena is going to happen in the next 5 years. And this is extremely important because what you start realizing is that a lot of innovations are now going to become possible because people's behaviors have got changed. There's a lot of concerns raised around the effectiveness of online learning. And it is true that online learning is good in some ways, but not so good in some other ways. But the key issue really is that a large proportion, in fact, a lot of the students in around all countries have now got used to online learning. And what will happen is the technology for online learning will keep evolving and keep changing. Today we use Zoom or some other system for online learning. In 3 years' time, the technology would have become much better. And what is interesting is that the students and the faculty and the universities will be much more open to adopting technology-enabled learning, which will lead to a more dramatic transformation of education across the world. The same kind of a transformational impact is something that we will see in across disciplines, whether it's office work, whether it's health, whether it's other kinds of person-to-person consultation. I think we will see a dramatic transformation in the years ahead. So that's the first point I wanted to make, is that despite the fact that we feel we have gone through a rapid phase of digitalization in the COVID era, we haven't as yet seen the true transformation. The true transformation is yet to come. The second point that I wanted to make is that if you look at real dramatic transformation driven by technology, the answers are usually not obvious. So, it takes some time for us to identify what the right solution is, what the right mode of hybrid education is, what the right mode of hybrid work is. So I don't think we know precisely as of today what the contours of the new world of digitalization will look like and feel like. So for discovering this new world, what we need to do is we need to have a lot of experimentation. And this is very important because without experimentation, we will not be able to discover what is possible, what is feasible, what do customers like, what is allowable with the constraints that is there in the society and so on. So what we need to go through, and this is true for almost all companies and all sectors, is we need to encourage a lot of experimentation of new models of doing business, of new models of operating, of new ways of reaching the customer. And this experimentation will lead to some failures too. Not all experiments will succeed. So we need to have a culture of experimentation, a culture that allows risk-taking, a culture that tolerates failures. And this needs to happen. I can tell you, for example, in universities, many of us of universities out here, I see already a very strong push towards going back to teaching in person the way it used to be before COVID. So there is a strong push from the organization, many countries and many organizations, to go back to the way things were. But that is not the right thing. At this stage, the right thing would be to actually take stock of what have we learned, what is possible, and then to experiment about what kind of new models of education are possible, what kind of new models of learning are possible. Now, what is interesting is that when you're looking at new models of doing things, the theory shows that innovation can happen either inside out or outside in. So either it can be that your organization creates the innovative ideas inside the organization, and then you take these ideas and you move to the market with that. Or outside in is that someone else outside the organization creates those ideas, and essentially you have to bring those ideas into the organization. Now, what the theory tells us in times of disruptive innovation, it is much more important to look at outside in innovation, because outside innovation gives you a chance to have different ideas, gives you a chance to be able to move faster in the transformation phase. And so what I believe is that we need a culture and leadership now to support a lot of experimentation and a lot of outside in innovation. And I think we are not very good at doing outside in innovation because our culture usually rejects ideas from outside, especially ideas that are different. So that's the second point I wanted to make, is that for real transformation right now, we need to have leaders who support that, a culture of experimentation with a lot of focus on outside in innovation. The last point I want to make is linked to sustainable development goals. Now, we all understand the importance of achieving the SDGs goals. And these are very important for a number of different important goals we need to satisfy for a large proportion of society. Now, what is also very clear is that these SDG goals cannot be met with business as usual. If we keep doing things the way we are doing things right now, we know that we will fail to meet the SDG goals, especially given some of the challenges that we have faced in the pandemic era, where a lot of the basic societal parameters have gone down. Inequalities increased, women have suffered, more women have left the workforce in the last 18 months than the previous 5 years and so on. So I think what we see is that if we want to achieve the SDG goals, we will have to leverage technology much more actively. And we will have to do things differently. Now, the good news out here is that if we come up with new models of, let's say, telehealth or teleeducation, we might actually be quite good at achieving or coming close to achieving the SDG goals. So I think technology is going to be a very key factor in enabling us to achieve the SDG goals. But once again, to achieve the SDG goals, we will have to bring this combination of partners. We'll have to bring together universities, the private sector, the government to come together and work together. And this is the key idea that is there behind the Triple Helix conference that you're organizing in Moasi, is that if we want to achieve the SDG goals, technology will have to be a very key enabler, driver, but technology alone cannot do the solution. We will have to have strong partnerships across industry, across government, across academia to come together to create the right solutions. And with the right leadership, with the right culture to innovate, I am quite confident that we'll be in a better and stronger position to achieve the SDG goals than what we were 12, 14 months ago. So thank you very much, Moasi, for allowing me to share some ideas. And I look forward to hearing more from Gianna and then maybe addressing the questions at the very end. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumitra. Gianna, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Professor Moasi, for the invitation to participate in this important event. Also, it's a great pleasure to be together with Professor Sumitra, that is a very good friend and also a very good partner of CNI. CNI is a knowledge institution in the Global Innovation Index, and we have been working together for some years now. And I believe that this work is very important for Brazil, to be a very good reference for the formulation of public policies on innovation. And also, it's a great pleasure to participate in this discussion. CNI represents all the industries in Brazil. We are talking about more than 1 million industries in Brazil, all sectors and all sizes. And the industry in Brazil is very important for our economy. The industry represents more than 20% of the GDP, almost 70% of the exports, and 70% of the entrepreneurial investment in R&D. So, and generate jobs, very good jobs, good remuneration. So it's important to think about the challenge that we have on the digital transformation and the central role of the industry in the Brazilian development. Bringing this discussion to Brazil, we can affirm that we need to accelerate the insertion of Brazil in this digital transformation. And few companies are really prepared to face the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution in Brazil. I'd like to give you some data about this. CNI commissioned a survey to map the perception of the industry in the current scenario in Brazil. 402 companies were interviewed last year, June last year. So the main conclusions that could show us how big is our challenge here. 65% of the industry reduced or halted production during the pandemic. 83% of the companies will need more innovation to overcome the crisis, to grow or survive in the post-pandemic world. Innovative solutions will be decisive for the country to face the effects of COVID-19. More than 70% of the companies do not have an open innovation, an innovation strategy to face this crisis. Most companies are interested in connecting to institutions, to global platforms in order to initiate this process, to insert in this digital transformation. The most frequent challenges to be solved according to these companies are, for example, startups, production, sales, technology, logistics. So we need, CNI works in this direction to support the Brazilian government formulating long-term policies to support the industry, to give priority to innovation in order to strengthen our industry. I'd like to start with this information. Moacir.
Thank you very much, Sumitra. Thank you, Jana. We have a very interesting perspective because Sumitra showed us all the potential that we have for the firms, for ecosystems, for the nations, for individuals related to this digital transformation, Industry 4.0. But the true transformation is still to come. So big avenues of opportunities ahead. And for enjoying that, you need to create or to stimulate this culture of experimentation and risk-taking. But Jana is putting eyes in the real world of Brazil. The challenges in Brazil are amazing. Only over 80% of the firms that in this survey don't have an innovation management strategy. And over 8% we need more information about this subject as well. Yeah. I will make another question, and then I will ask the audience to put your questions in chat or in the YouTube. My next question is about what are you doing in your organizations to deal with these challenges, the big avenues, opportunities, but simultaneously all the restrictions. Sumitra, I know that you are a professor, researcher, but also entrepreneur. You belong to the board of international, very important, large corporations in the world. You are CEO of startups and so on. And then, Jana, come on, you are leading innovation leader of the most important industrial or organization in Brazil. Right? You are representing here over 1 million firms. So, wow, I want to listen. What are you doing and what can you learn from your experience? Back to Sumitra. Sumitra.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Moacir. So, and of course, I have the privilege of, working in one of the top Ivy League institutions in the world, partnering with many organizations, including, as Gianna said, with CNI and many organizations in Brazil. I'm also on the board of organizations like Dassault Systems, which are very heavily involved in the digital economy, and like ZS Healthcare, which is very much involved in platform-based healthcare systems and consulting in healthcare. As you said, I myself am very interested in educational technology, and I am the co-founder of a company called Legacia in that area. So I work and I'm very interested in observing what is happening in different sectors with technology. I can tell you 2 or 3 observations. So first of all, the amount of excitement around technology that you see today in young people, in organizations, extremely high. I've never seen that before. I take the field of artificial intelligence. I did my PhD in artificial intelligence 30 years ago from Berkeley. And I must say that, when I first taught a course at INSEAD, my first job on AI, the number of students who wanted to take my course was not very high because people are not really looking at technology strategically. People saw technology as a back office function. That has changed completely right now. And students, young people today all want to get in technology. Today, when I teach a course on AI or digital transformation at Cornell, those courses are heavily oversubscribed and people are very interested. Now, that interest of the young people in technology is very positive, and that's worldwide. It's happening in Brazil, it's happening in the US, it's happening everywhere. And I think this is something which, for me, is a very positive thing, because that'll drive the future, and the young people will help create a better future using technology for all of us. So that's one trend that I see worldwide. The second trend that I see is companies are struggling. I'm talking about incumbent organizations, large existing organizations. They are struggling to handle the disruption caused by digital technologies. It's like trying to, imagine 100 years ago when the car was being invented. The internal combustion engine had been created, and people are trying to understand how can the engine be used for transportation, because people used to go from place to place by horse carriages before. Henry Ford, made the statement that, well, if you actually ask the customers what they want, they'll tell you that they want a faster horse, okay? Because that's what they're used to. They're used to horses and horse carriages. So what you want is a faster horse to go from one place to the other faster. But really, in some sense, the potential of the engine is to create the car, the automobile, and the whole ecosystem around that. So the challenge for companies today is that how do you keep your current business running? How do you improve your current business and make it more efficient for using technology, while at the same time imagining the future that will happen in your business? Now, imagining the future is not easy, requires courage, and as I said, requires the ability to have experiments and to be able to fail and to learn from the failures. So I think this challenge to be able to both become more efficient today using technology, yet at the same time imagine the future, is a huge challenge for organizations. And I see companies struggling with this whole digital transformation story. I don't think any one country or any one sector has cracked the story. Yes, American companies, the tech companies are very good at it, But guess what? In America also, there are many companies that are struggling, many companies struggling about how to handle the technology revolution. Look at even leading companies like, AT&T or like IBM. They're very good companies. They're struggling about how to handle the future telephony, telecoms, or mobile media, or, for example, even cloud services and whole software-based service model. So I think a lot of concerns about discovering the future while preserving your current business success. That's the second trend that I see around the world. And the third thing that I would say really is that today, technology-based entrepreneurship is becoming extremely attractive. A lot of people, in fact, are seeing technology-based business models as a way to not just create wealth, but also help create a better world. And a lot of young people today see the technology-based entrepreneurship as a way to increase sustainability in the world, as a way to create a more sustainable world. So I'll give you one example. I'm involved with a group of colleagues in looking at sustainable high-tech, deep tech ventures in India, because sustainability is a big challenge for a country like India, where there are enormous problems of the climate, of carbon emissions, of other kinds of SDG goal gaps. And in the face of these enormous challenges, a lot of young people in India and elsewhere actually are looking at technology-enabled models to help arrive at the solutions. And this is happening worldwide, not just in India. So I would say, those are the three sort of overall trends that I see, which are very positive, at the same time present a lot of opportunities for companies too. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumitra. Gianna, please.
Yes. Well, CNI, we coordinate a huge entrepreneurial mobilization to strengthen our ecosystem of innovation, indeed our ecosystem of science, technology, and innovation. We have today more than 400 of the biggest entrepreneurial leaders in Brazil participating in this movement. And we have as objectives, first of all, to support the Brazilian government to design, to formulate more effective public policies, to have more outcomes for Brazil. Also, to support the Brazilian companies to innovate with methodologies, cases, publications, research, and also programs, training that is very important, as Sumitra mentioned, to prepare our workers for the future, but the future that we are living now, because we are living now the impact of this digital transformation. So this is very important, and we have very good outcomes from this mobilization, as for example, many laws that were implemented with our proposal, and also, for example, the modernization of the engineering in Brazil. We have now the new guidelines for the engineering that was that is based in a proposal from May, just to give you some examples, right? And also, CNI, we have the industrial system, the CNI, that is, I imagine that you know CNI. CNI is our institution that is responsible for the training of the workers, and also technological service and innovation. Now we have 60 institutes of technology, of innovation, distributed all over Brazil in many sectors. Usually they are specialized in the same sector that we have the industry in a specific region. And also we have 27 institutes of innovation from Senai all over Brazil, also supporting the industry to innovate. So these are some of our efforts to support the industry to innovate.
Very interesting, very interesting. A lot of things happening and going on. We have these questions from the audience. There is a question by Rafael Crispin. He understands that Brazil has all the features required to have a flourishing innovation systems, but still he thinks that Brazil faces difficult to promote innovation and to catch up with more developed nations. Why? Why the question? Why the country? Why Brazil still faces difficulties to promote innovation to catch up with more developed nations? And the other is from Marcelo Amaral. There is the vice president of Triple Helix Association. And the question is how Triple Helix can be useful in this process to support the companies in the current and future transformation, digital transformation, mainly digital transformation. Why in Brazil, and how can the Triple Helix...
I can start, but yes, I think that Sumitra can give a lot of information to support what I would say. Brazil, the most innovative countries, first of all, they have a very clear strategy, long-term strategy. They know what they want to be in 20, 30 years, and they formulate robust public policies in order to achieve these objectives, okay? And also, they invest very important volume in R&D. So, for example, the countries from OECD, they are investing more than 2% of the GDP in R&D. We have, for example, Korea and Israel that is achieving around 5%. They have United States, Sumitra, around 3% of the GDP of investment. And the last information that we have, official information from Brazil, we were investing around 1% of the GDP. So, quickly answer this question, I would say we need public policies, instruments for public policies, and to invest more in innovation. Unfortunately, we are not investing. We have, for example, this situation of the National Fund for Science, Technology, and Innovation. Last year, the Brazilian government cut 90% of the budget of this fund. And this fund is the main instrument in Brazil to develop our ecosystem of science, technology, and innovation. So we need to give priority for innovation in Brazil, to have the public policies, and to invest more in R&D. For sure, we can support the companies with methodologies, technologies. We need to educate people for this challenge. But first of all, I believe that that Brazil needs the public policies.
Thank you, Gianna. Sumitra, please.
Yeah, so, Gianna is the expert, of course, on Brazil, but I also had the benefit of being able to study Brazil as part of the Global Innovation Index together with Gianna. And I must preface my comments by saying that I'm a big supporter of Brazil, as both you, Moacir, and Gianna know. I think Brazil has tremendous potential, and I think the challenge for Brazil is to be able to take its leadership position in Latin America and make valuable contribution to the world of innovation more generally. Now, I want to emphasize the points that Gianna mentioned, a national strategy, and it begins with the leadership at the very top. If you take, for example, two other BRIC country leaders, President Xi from China or Prime Minister Modi from India, it is interesting to actually observe in the speeches they make, in the public appearances they make, how often they talk about innovation, how often they talk about the importance of technology. And I can tell you that in both countries, President Xi and Prime Minister Modi, they frequently talk about how important technology is for the future of China, the future of India. Of course, how technology is going to be used is different. China is a richer country, so China is more focused on, taking a leadership position in the world in technology and being able to be at the frontiers. India is a much poorer country, so the focus is much more on using technology to reduce inequality, to reduce corruption, increase transparency, and all the things that are actually important for India. So you can relate technology use to how the country's goals are positioned. And it is very important to actually see how does the leader of the country, and I think in this context, I think you all understand it better than I do, how the president of Brazil has or has not emphasized technology innovation in his own speeches and his own, words. Second, I think the national strategy is something which is critical. In most countries that have done well in the Global Innovation Index, we have seen that they have a strategy for doing so. And they have taken actions that have supported that. If you take, for example, China, that has done extremely well in the last few years, has moved up from the Global Innovation Index rankings in the 35s to now 14 in the last 2020 ranking. China, back 20 years ago, the government of China decided that in 20 years' time, they want to be in the top 10 countries innovation in the world. And then they have been working towards that systematically, strategically working towards that. And the same thing is true for countries like Korea and Singapore and other countries. There has been a national strategy that actually underlies the drive towards innovation. Now, if you look at Brazil, one thing that we observe in Brazil is that Brazil actually scores higher on the Global Innovation Index on the innovation inputs and lower on the innovation outputs. For those of you who don't know the Global Innovation Index model, the innovation assessment in the model is done based on two parameters. So one set of parameters looks at the kind of enabling factors in an economy for supporting innovation. Another set of factors looks at the actual outputs of innovation. So what we find is that in Brazil, there's a lot more sort of investment innovation happening compared to its actual outputs. So yes, you need to have more R&D investments. You need to have many more other improvements in the, let's say, Brazil innovation ecosystem. But in relative terms, Brazil scores higher on the inputs and less on the outputs. So what is missing really in Brazil is this linkage between the investments and the actual innovation outputs. One example of this is, if you look at, for example, the linkage between industry and academia. In the US, one of the key linkages in the innovation ecosystem in the triple helix system is the linkage between industry and academia, which is facilitated by the government through the various National Science Foundation, grants and other kinds of R&D grants. Now, that link is something which is not very strong in Brazil. I know it from my own experience, having spoken to professors and colleagues in Brazil. But this is something which is very important to be able to make the whole system operate well. So the other question that asked about the triple helix, I think it's very important for there to be an integrated approach across academia, across government, across private sector. And if you go back and even look at Europe, I'm now living in Europe for the summer. And one of the examples in Europe is often quoted is Finland. Finland till late 80s was an economy, based on natural resources, like forest and timber and pulp. And it changed. Why? Because of the whole crash of the Soviet Union. And really, when the Soviet Union crashed, the economy of Finland shrank by 25%. The whole country said that, well, we have to move our economy from a natural resource economy to a knowledge-based economy. And to move that economy to a knowledge-based economy, there was an integrated effort made by the government, academia, and industry. And these three things, key pillars, came together to actually help move Finland's successful knowledge-based economy. So, those triple helix model is extremely critical for building a successful innovation ecosystem in any country. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Jana and Sumitra. Jana brought to the table the lack of investments we are facing nowadays in science and technology and innovation from the federal government. But, Jana, it's bad news from the federal perspective, but in the state of São Paulo, we have a panel with the Secretary of Science and Technology and Development, and she said that the federal government reduced the investment in science, technology, and innovation in 1/3, and the state of São Paulo increased that in 1/3 in the last two years. So it depends a lot on the mindset of the government. I hope the Brazilians choose better in the next term. And the Sumitra, the comment of Sumitra trying to summarize everything is really connected with what Jana said, because Sumitra is teaching us about the need of a national strategy. And the Sumitra, your words are very important for me, because at this conference, okay, this week we have two simultaneous conferences. This panel is a joint panel of the Triple Helix Conference and the Science Meets Business Conference. We created Science Meets Business Conference 5 years ago, exactly connected with this perspective. Brazil is has an economy, natural resources-based economy. Brazil is very strong in commodities, minerals commodities, agribusiness commodities, and the very idea of the Science Meets Business event is putting together university, government, industry, and doing that, increasing the inoculating some science and technology and innovation in these value chains, these commodity value chains. The idea is not exporting or selling commodities, but selling the product with aggregated value. Let me make a comment here, because the question we have, oh my God, we have 6 minutes. So I make my comment in 1 minute and then back to you for your final words. The question of Crispin make this question about what the problems of the Brazilian innovation ecosystem, but we are living a very interesting situation. The Brazilian economy is really bad. There is no economic growth. We have a recession past year, and so on. But on the other side, the entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem is booming. We have seen with the number of startups, according to Brazilian Startups Association, nowadays around 15,000. Most of them technology and the digital based, and it's almost 30% more than 2 years ago. Additionally to that, Brazil has created 12 unicorns in the last 3 years. So this conference is for we to learn. Yesterday, I was in another panel with the Brazilian Association of Digital Transformation, the president of Brazilian Association of Digital Transformation. There is also a partner of Log, one of the 12 Brazilian unicorns. And he was previously a partner of iFood, the other Brazilian unicorn. And iFood belongs to Movile. There is another Brazilian unicorn that have a unicorn in its portfolio. So it's a unicorn that has a unicorn, and then he's a guy there. He's a practitioner. He's in the front. He's doing the digital transformation in Brazil, and he did a very interesting comment. He said to me, Moacir, we had a commodities boom in Brazil, in the past decade, and Brazil surfed that wave. And what we are seeing nowadays is another boom, a technology investment boom. The interest rates in the United States and Europe are real bad. Sometimes it's negative, and investors need a place to put the money. And they are coming to Brazil. The most important investors in the world are already in Brazil. And these unicorns is not just a coincidence. It's because there are too much money around the world, and they are looking for the best opportunities. And Brazil is, despite all the mess of our government, is still the 8th largest economy in the world. And we have a very important, very good universities. You have a very diversified industry, like Janice teached us before. So this is something that I'd like to share to you, with you and the audience. And now we have 2 minutes for Sumitra, 2 minutes for Jana, and then unfortunately our panel will be over. Sumitra, do you want to make it?
Yeah, I just want to support the comment that you just made right now, Moacir. I think Brazil has great human talent, great potential as a country because the large population, is the dominant country in Latin America. And so I do think that, technology will lead to a lot of entrepreneurship in Brazil. And you will have more unicorns in Brazil. So there's no question about that. I think more unicorns will arise in Brazil. And that will be good for the economy. I really think that's very good for the economy. And I think you need to celebrate these entrepreneurs who have made it successfully. They will inspire the next generation. I've seen that happen in India. India, the first generation of unicorns and entrepreneurs inspired the next generation. And now there are so many entrepreneurs in India happening at a very, very large, rapid scale. So celebrate the successes that you have, and they will drive change. They will drive change. And I'm sure that Brazil will do very well. Brazilians will do very well. And the economy is there. But, the world is moving fast. Things are changing fast in China and India and US. And so I think Brazil has to be also moving fast. So good luck. And I look forward to following what is happening with all successful entrepreneurs in Brazil.
Thank you very, very much, Sumit. I hope to see you briefly, hopefully face-to-face. Jana,
yes.
Your turn.
I would say that the big challenge for Brazil, for sure that we have a very sophisticated entrepreneurial sector. International companies, international from the other countries in Brazil, and Brazilian companies operating in other countries. But our big challenge is to support the small companies, the very small companies, and media companies. These companies we need to support, because with this digital transformation, if they don't make a movement to prepare themselves to this revolution, perhaps they could disappear. And we know that a big part of the companies in Brazil are small and very small companies. So our big challenge is to support almost the sector of these companies. Otherwise, we don't have these companies participating in the future. And we know that these companies nowadays are responsible for 30% of the GDP in Brazil. And they really create the jobs for the Brazilian. So we have a lot of challenges, but we are very enthusiastic, CNI, that we will face this challenge, that we will overcome our crisis, and that we will return to the developing our economic and social aspects in Brazil.
Okay, time is over. I want to say a big, big thank you to Jana Sagazio, to Sumitra Dutta for sharing with us your experience, your knowledge, your insights. It was a great panel. Thank you very, very much. And
thank you very much
for the audience as well.
So. Thank you, Moacir.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. All the best. Bye-bye.
On behalf of Triple Helix, I'd like to thank Professor Sumitra, Gianna, Professor Dr. Moacir. Thanks to all our keynote speakers and participants. Tomorrow we will start our activities at 8:30 a.m. Brazilian time, and it's also the day of our ceremony award. Have a good afternoon. Have a great night. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.